The werewolf girl in my cafeteria keeps stealing my food. We were never truly alone in the campus cafeteria. Every stolen snack, every disarming smile from Brianna was a data point. She wasn't just a girl with an unusual appetite. She was an alien ambassador, her werewolf-like traits a natural state from Lyraxis, and her mission was to judge humanity's worthiness for an alliance. My quiet annoyance was her primary research subject, a crucial factor in galactic diplomacy. His quiet annoyance simmered, a daily ritual as predictable as his lunch schedule. Stefan carefully positioned his pre-packed sandwich, angling it just so on the cafeteria tray. Next came the apple slices, neatly fanned, followed by a small container of spiced chickpeas. He valued order, a calm island in the chaotic sea of campus life. He reached for his water bottle, a small sigh escaping him. A blur of motion beside him, a flash of something golden. Brianna. She was there, not even a sound of her approach. Her hand, quick as a striking viper, had already snagged the chickpeas. She settled onto the bench opposite him, a wide, genuine smile on her face, golden eyes sparkling with a mischievous warmth. Light brown fur highlights, almost imperceptible, caught the artificial light above, giving her hair an unusual depth. "Oh, Stefan," she chirped, her voice a melodic whisper, "you truly know how to pick the best snacks." She dipped a finger into the container, retrieving a chickpea and popping it into her mouth. Her expression was pure, unadulterated delight. Stefan felt the familiar heat rise in his cheeks. He tightened his grip on the water bottle. "Brianna," he began, his voice a little too quiet, a little too strained, "those are mine." He gestured vaguely at the small container, already half empty. His attempts at confrontation always felt like navigating a minefield blindfolded. She tilted her head, her smile softening into something almost regretful. "Oh, I am so sorry," she said, her golden eyes widening slightly. It was a look that would melt glaciers, a look that made him feel like the cruelest person in the universe for even thinking about his chickpeas. "I just saw them and my appetite got the better of me. They looked so perfectly spiced." She offered the container back, a single chickpea remaining, her expression radiating puppy-like contrition. He stared at the lone chickpea, then at her earnest face. His annoyance warred with a strange, unwilling warmth. How could he argue with such a genuine apology? It felt like kicking a puppy, even though the puppy had just committed grand theft chickpea. "It's fine," he mumbled, pushing the container back towards her. "Keep them." He picked up his sandwich, taking a bite, though the flavor seemed muted now. Brianna beamed, a brighter, more open smile replacing her apologetic one. "You are truly too kind, Stefan," she said, taking the last chickpea. She hummed with contentment, a rare quality, kindness. He watched her, a new wave of frustration hitting him. Kindness was one thing, being a doormat was another. He should demand she buy him another container. He should make her understand boundaries. But then she shifted, leaning slightly forward, her light brown fur highlights seeming to ripple and deepen in color. It was a subtle, almost imperceptible change, a quick shimmer that made him blink. He focused on her hair, wondering if the cafeteria lights were playing tricks on him. It looked thicker, richer, almost alive. "Are you all right?" she asked, her gaze piercing, as if sensing his sudden scrutiny. "Yes, fine," he replied, perhaps too quickly. He looked away, focusing on a spot on the wall behind her. He needed to recenter himself. This was just Brianna, the girl with the boundless appetite and the disarming charm. Nothing unusual. Yet that flicker, it had been more than just light. She chuckled softly. "You always look so serious, Stefan. Do you ever just relax?" She reached for his apple slices, her movements fluid and graceful. He flinched, but before he could protest, she had already taken one. "These are excellent," she declared, crunching into it with gusto. "Crisp, sweet. You truly have a discerning palate." He watched her, a strange mix of emotions swirling within him. Annoyance, yes, but also a growing curiosity. Her eyes, those golden eyes, held an intensity he rarely saw in anyone. They seemed to observe everything, missing nothing. She wasn't just eating his food. She was studying him, studying his reactions, absorbing every detail. He felt like an exhibit under glass, and she was the most charming, food-stealing scientist imaginable. "What exactly are you doing?" he asked, his voice low, surprising himself with the directness of the question. He pointed at his now depleted tray. Brianna paused, the half-eaten apple slice held delicately in her hand. Her golden eyes met his, and for a fleeting moment he saw something ancient there, a depth that belied her youthful appearance. Then it was gone, replaced by her usual innocent playfulness. "Observing," she said simply, a coy smile playing on her lips, "and enjoying the finest culinary delights this campus has to offer. You make good choices, Stefan." He narrowed his eyes, observing what? She took another bite of the apple. "Human nature, your nature specifically." She gestured with the apple slice. "How you react to minor inconveniences, your tolerance for shared resources, your capacity for forgiveness." She finished the apple, then dabbed her mouth with a napkin, her movements precise. "It is all very interesting." Stefan felt a prickle of unease. Her words, delivered with such lightheartedness, carried an undercurrent that resonated with something deeper, something he couldn't quite grasp. It was more than just a playful tease. It felt like a pronouncement. He found himself studying her more closely, looking for any tell, any sign that she was joking. But her expression remained open, sincere. He recalled the brief shimmer of her hair, the way the light brown fur highlights had seemed to shift. It had been so quick, so subtle, yet it had left an impression. A flicker of something unusual, something beyond normal human variation. Could it have been his imagination, or something else entirely? A spark of genuine intrigue ignited within him, overshadowing his usual quiet frustration. This girl, Brianna, was a puzzle. A very charming, food-stealing puzzle. He wanted to understand why his quiet annoyance was so fascinating to her. He wanted to know what she truly saw when she looked at him, and he wanted to know more about those subtle, almost magical shifts in her appearance. Stefan found himself scanning the cafeteria for her, not out of annoyance anymore, but a nascent curiosity. His lunch ritual, once a sacred, solitary act, now felt incomplete without her inevitable appearance. He began noticing things. Brianna never ate processed food. Her tray was always piled high with fruits, raw vegetables, and lean proteins. She consumed them with an almost predatory efficiency, yet her movements remained graceful, almost delicate. He saw her once sprinting across campus to catch a bus, a blur of motion that seemed to defy gravity. She leaped over a low hedge with effortless grace, landing silently, her backpack barely shifting. Other students struggled with the same obstacle. Brianna moved with an innate fluidity, a subtle power that hinted at something more than just athletic prowess. He often saw her near the older, less frequented parts of campus, particularly around the botanical gardens or the quiet paths that led to the abandoned observatory. She moved through these secluded areas like a creature perfectly at home, blending in with the shadows, then emerging into sunlight with a bright, innocent smile. The next day, Stefan arrived at the cafeteria early, determined to outmaneuver her. He chose a table tucked away in a corner, facing the wall, his back to the main entrance. He unwrapped his sandwich quickly, took a large bite, and guarded his apple slices with his arm. He felt a small thrill of victory. Perhaps today he would finally eat his entire meal undisturbed. A shadow fell over his table. He looked up, chewing slowly. Brianna stood there, a bright orange in her hand. "Stefan," she said, her golden eyes twinkling. "I was hopping to find you." Before he could respond, she peeled the orange with surprising speed, then with an almost imperceptible flick of her wrist, she plucked an apple slice from his carefully guarded pile. She took a delicate bite, her gaze unwavering. "This is exquisite," she declared, as if he had presented it to her as a gift. Stefan felt a sigh escape him. He had tried. He really had. He had even considered bringing a second decoy lunch, but the thought felt absurd. How could he outwit someone who moved like a whisper and anticipated his every defensive maneuver? He watched her, a grudging admiration mixing with his lingering frustration. It wasn't just her speed. It was her uncanny ability to appear precisely when he least expected it, and her complete lack of shame. "Are you always this observant?" he asked, pushing his tray slightly towards her in a gesture of surrender. Brianna smiled, a genuine, radiant expression that warmed him despite himself. "It is a necessary skill," she replied, taking another apple slice, "for a successful mission." She didn't elaborate, but the words hung in the air, a subtle challenge. Her eyes held a knowing glint, as if she understood his every thought, his every strategy. His attempts to secure his food grew increasingly elaborate, almost a game. One day he brought his lunch in a sealed, opaque container, placing it under the table at his feet. He saw Brianna enter, her head tilting, her nose subtly twitching as she scanned the room. She walked past his table, paused, then circled back. "Lost something, Stefan?" she asked innocently, bending down. Before he could react, she had retrieved the container, popped it open, and extracted a handful of his roasted pecans. She offered him one, her smile apologetic but unwavering. "Shared resources, remember." Another time, he tried eating his most prized snacks first, devouring his chocolate bar before even touching his main course. He felt a fleeting sense of triumph. Surely she couldn't steal what was already gone. He looked up, smug. Brianna was already seated opposite him, a half-eaten chocolate bar in her hand. "I found this abandoned on a table," she explained, her eyes twinkling with suppressed amusement. It looked lonely. He knew, with a sinking feeling, that it was his, somehow swapped out from his tray when his attention had been elsewhere. Her quickness was beyond human. Stefan found himself looking forward to these encounters, a surprising shift in his routine. He would unconsciously prepare for her, sometimes even mentally strategizing new ways to protect his food, knowing full well they would likely fail. He started to notice the subtle nuances in her expressions, the way her golden eyes would crinkle at the corners when she was truly amused, the slight tilt of her head when she was genuinely curious. He realized she wasn't just taking his food. She was engaging him, drawing him out of his quiet shell. One afternoon, he was sketching in the art studio, lost in his work. He had brought a small bag of dried mangoes, his favorite. He felt a light touch on his shoulder. Brianna stood there, a mango slice already in her hand. "Such focus," she murmured, admiring his sketch. "You create beauty." She took another mango slice. "And you choose delicious fuel." He didn't even bother to protest. He simply watched her, a small smile playing on his lips. "You really like mangoes, don't you?" he asked. "They are a taste of sunshine," she replied, her eyes closing for a moment as she savored the fruit. "A concentrated burst of warmth." She looked at him then, her gaze intense. "Just like your reactions, Stefan." His heart gave a small, unexpected flutter. He felt seen, truly seen, not just as a source of snacks, but as something more. He hadn't realized how much he craved that recognition. Her words, playful as they were, carried a weight, an understanding that went beyond their surface meaning. He was no longer just annoyed. He was intrigued, genuinely captivated. He wanted to know what she saw, what she truly meant. The game had shifted. It was no longer about defending his food. It was about understanding her, and perhaps understanding himself through her unusual perspective. He found himself anticipating her presence, not with dread, but with a quiet, growing excitement. He wanted to see what she would do next. He wanted to see how she would challenge him. He wanted to see that flicker in her hair again. He wanted to see her. One evening, after the last of the art students had packed away their charcoals and paints, Stefan remained, refining a complex perspective drawing. The campus was quieter then, the usual daytime chatter replaced by the distant hum of ventilation systems and the occasional late-night vehicle. He gathered his supplies, the weight of his backpack familiar. Instead of heading directly to his dorm, a sudden impulse led him to take a longer route past the campus gymnasium. He often found the late-night quiet of that section of campus oddly peaceful. As he walked down a dimly lit hallway leading to the gym's less-used entrance, a flicker of movement caught his eye. The door to a small, rarely used storage room, usually locked, was ajar. Curiosity tugged at him. He paused, listening. A soft thud echoed from within, followed by a low, almost guttural sigh. He edged closer, peering through the narrow gap in the door. Brianna stood inside, her back partially to him. She wore simple athletic wear, her light brown fur highlights gleaming even in the low light. But something was wrong. Her posture was strained, her shoulders hunched. Then he saw it. Her body seemed to ripple, elongating subtly, her frame gaining a sudden, impossible height. Her hands, usually so delicate when pilfering his snacks, appeared larger, fingers thickening. And her golden eyes, usually so playful, glowed with an intense, otherworldly light, a fiery amber that pulsed with an internal energy he could almost feel from his vantage point. A sound escaped her, a soft, almost pained growl that vibrated with raw power. It was fleeting, a mere few seconds, but undeniable. Stefan froze, his breath catching in his throat. His mind struggled to process the impossible image. He blinked, trying to make sense of what he saw, but it was already receding. Just as quickly as the change had begun, it reversed. Her form softened, shrinking back to its familiar proportions. The intense glow in her eyes faded, though a faint residual shimmer lingered. She leaned against the wall, taking a deep, shuddering breath. Then her head snapped up. Her golden eyes, still wide, met his through the narrow gap. A gasp escaped her lips, not guttural this time, but distinctly human, filled with shock and a flash of alarm. She pushed away from the wall, her movements quick and fluid, a sudden tension in her every muscle. "Stefan," she whispered, her voice tight, laced with a fear he had never heard from her before. She moved towards the door, her steps deliberate. Her expression was guarded, a mask he hadn't seen. She pulled the door open fully, revealing herself. She looked entirely normal, her light brown fur highlights soft, her athletic wear perfectly fitted. Only her eyes still held a lingering intensity, a heightened awareness that betrayed her previous state. He found his voice, though it was a mere croak. "Brianna, what was that?" She avoided his gaze for a moment, then met it directly, a carefully constructed calm settling over her features. "Stefan, you shouldn't be here. It's late." "I saw something," he insisted, his voice gaining strength. "Your eyes, you changed." She took a step closer, her hand reaching out, then hesitating before touching his arm. Her touch was light but grounding. "What you saw was an unfortunate symptom," she began, her voice low, almost a murmur. She looked around the empty hallway as if checking for hidden listeners. "I have a rather unique metabolic condition. It's rare, and it requires very specific, very intense nutrient intake." Stefan stared at her, trying to reconcile her words with the impossible sight. "Metabolic condition." Your eyes glowed, Brianna. You grew taller. You made a sound like an animal. A flicker of something akin to worry crossed her face, quickly suppressed. "It's part of the condition. My body sometimes overcompensates, especially when I'm underfed. It requires significant energy to maintain my usual form. The elongation, the glow, it's a temporary, involuntary surge of internal energy, a kind of metabolic flare. It resolves quickly, as you saw." She paused, her golden eyes searching his. "The food I take from you, Stefan, it helps. It provides the quick energy necessary to keep these flares from becoming more pronounced." He felt a profound sense of disorientation. Her explanation was delivered with such conviction, such a blend of scientific-sounding terms and genuine vulnerability that it almost made sense. Almost. But his rational mind screamed in protest. People did not just elongate and glow because of a metabolic condition. It defied every law of physics and biology he understood. Yet he had seen it. His own eyes had witnessed the impossible. "So, you steal my food because of a rare metabolic condition?" he asked, a strange mix of disbelief and dawning comprehension in his tone. The playful annoyance he usually felt was entirely absent, replaced by a deep, unsettling curiosity. "Precisely," she affirmed, her gaze unwavering. "It's a constant battle keeping my energy levels balanced. Human food, particularly the high-density snacks you favor, is surprisingly effective. It's a very unusual requirement, I know. I apologize for the secrecy. It's not something I typically share." He took a step back, needing space to process. "So the missions you hinted at, they were about finding food to manage this condition?" In a way, yes, she admitted, a slight dip in her head. Every interaction, every shared snack serves a dual purpose, fuel and observation, but primarily fuel for the condition. Stefan ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. He had always seen her as an enigma, but this was beyond anything he could have imagined. Her explanation, while seemingly plausible on the surface, felt hollow against the vivid memory of her glowing eyes and shifting form. He remembered the subtle flicker in her hair he had noticed in the cafeteria. Was that also part of this condition? The unusual grace and speed he had observed. Was that a symptom too? He stared at her, truly seeing her for the first time without the lens of playful annoyance. The girl who stole his snacks, the girl who made him feel seen, was also a being capable of something truly extraordinary, something that defied human understanding. The casual way she spoke of her impossible reality made his own world feel suddenly fragile, less certain. Brianna watched him, a quiet tension in her stance. She seemed to brace herself for his judgment, for his outright rejection of her explanation, for his fear. But fear was not what Stefan felt. A profound, almost overwhelming intrigue had taken root deep within him. The contradiction between her disarming normalcy and the impossible glimpse he had witnessed created a chasm in his understanding, and he felt an urgent, powerful need to bridge it. His annoyance, his quiet frustration, all of it had vanished, replaced by a consuming desire for answers. He wanted to know the truth. He wanted to understand her. The game of stolen snacks had evolved into something far more significant, a cosmic riddle he was now desperate to solve. He needed to know what else she was hiding, what else she truly was. His quiet life had just been fundamentally altered, and he suddenly felt a thrilling sense of purpose he had never known before. The profound intrigue Stefan felt pulsed through him, a new current in his quiet existence. He wanted answers. He wanted to understand Brianna. His life had changed, and he now felt an exhilarating sense of purpose. The next afternoon, Stefan sat in the campus library, hunched over a history textbook. He expected Brianna to materialize at the cafeteria, not here. But then, a shadow fell across his page. She stood beside his table, not with an outstretched hand for food, but with a small, leather-bound notebook. "Stefan," she said, her voice a soft murmur, not quite a whisper. "This particular archive of Terran conflicts, fascinating." He looked up startled. "History, yeah, I find it grounding." Brianna slid into the chair opposite him, no longer focused on his snacks. Grounding, an interesting choice of word. It implies a need to remain anchored, perhaps against forces that would pull one away. She tapped the book gently. "These conflicts, the patterns of human behavior within them, do you find them repetitive?" Stefan blinked. "Repetitive, I guess, in a way. The reasons change, but the core human elements maybe." He found himself speaking more freely than he usually would with anyone, let alone her. "Ambition, fear, loyalty." "Precisely," she said, her golden eyes fixed on him, not the book. "The motivations remain consistent even as the tools evolve. It suggests a fundamental, unchanging core to your species, a strength perhaps, but also a predictability." Her tone held a detached observation, yet it wasn't cold. It was simply ancient, as if she had witnessed countless such cycles. Stefan's mind reeled with the implications of her words. Predictability, unchanging core. Was she speaking from a vantage point beyond human experience? The memory of her shifting form in the gymnasium flashed through his mind. He pushed away the questions that threatened to overwhelm him. Instead, he found himself drawn into her unusual perspective. He realized she was not just observing him, but engaging him on a level no one else ever had. "I suppose you're right," he admitted, leaning back. "It's like watching the same play with different actors, but sometimes there's a new scene, a moment of true invention." Brianna smiled, a slow, genuine curve of her lips. "Ah, invention, the unpredictable spark. That is what truly shifts the narrative, is it not?" Her gaze softened, losing its analytical edge. "You see it in art, too, the unexpected stroke that transforms a canvas." Stefan felt a warmth spread through him. She remembered his passion, his quiet space. He considered telling her about his latest painting but hesitated. He rarely shared his inner world. A few days later, Brianna found him sketching near the campus pond. She sat beside him on the damp grass, her presence quiet and unobtrusive. No mention of food. "You spend much time observing," she commented, watching him. "Like me." He nodded, shading a tree trunk. "I always have. I notice the small things, the way light hits something, the subtle shifts in expression." He paused, looking at his sketch. "I guess it's why I like to paint. I try to capture those details." "And you are quiet," she observed, not as a judgment but a simple statement of fact. Many beings mistake quietness for absence, but it is often a deeper presence. Stefan felt a jolt of surprise. It was as if she had looked inside his mind and articulated a truth he had always known but never heard spoken aloud. "Yeah," he said, a little breathlessly. "I always felt like I was on the outside looking in, watching everyone interact but not really part of it." He traced a line on his pad. "It's easier to see things when you're not in the middle of it all." Brianna turned fully towards him, her golden eyes holding his. "That perspective is invaluable. It allows for clarity, for unbiased interpretation. The observer often holds the most crucial insights." She reached out, her fingers brushing his arm lightly, a fleeting, comforting touch. "Do not mistake your quiet nature for a weakness, Stefan. It is a strength, a unique lens through which to perceive the world." His heart thrummed. No one had ever understood him like that. His parents encouraged him but never truly grasped his quiet core. His friends valued his presence but rarely delved into his internal landscape. Brianna, a girl who stole his food and secretly transformed, saw him completely. He felt a profound connection blooming, a sense of being truly seen and appreciated. It was disarming, unsettling, and exhilarating all at once. As they sat there, absorbed in their conversation, Stefan felt a prickling sensation on the back of his neck. He glanced up, his gaze sweeping across the pond. A figure stood by the gnarled oak on the far bank, partially obscured by its low branches. A student, he assumed. The student was tall, with dark hair, and wore a simple, dark jacket, nothing remarkable. Yet something about the way the student stood, utterly still, facing them, felt wrong. Stefan couldn't quite make out the face, but the posture was rigid, almost predatory. The student remained there for a long moment, then slowly turned and disappeared into the trees. Stefan shivered, a fleeting unease settling over him. "Did you see that?" he murmured, looking at Brianna. She had been watching the student too, her expression unreadable. A student, perhaps, taking a moment. Her voice was calm, but a subtle tension tightened her shoulders. Stefan dismissed it, though the feeling lingered. He returned to his sketch, but the strange encounter had disrupted his focus. The next week, their informal meetings became more frequent. Brianna would intercept him between classes or appear near his usual study spots. She didn't always speak, sometimes just sitting with him in comfortable silence, her presence a warm, steady anchor. He found himself sharing more details about his life, his hopes, his fears. He talked about his struggle with finding his artistic voice, his uncertainty about the future. "The future is a canvas yet untouched," Brianna offered one afternoon in the campus art studio, watching him blend pigments. "It holds infinite possibilities. Do not fear the blankness. Embrace the potential." He looked at her, truly captivated. "It's hard sometimes to just create, to put something out there that might not be good enough." "Good enough for whom?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. "Art is expression. It is a reflection of the inner self. Its worth is not determined by external judgment but by the truth it conveys." She picked up a small, unworked block of clay. Her fingers moved over it, shaping it with an innate grace, smoothing edges, pressing indentations. Fear of judgment stifles the most beautiful creations. Stefan watched her, mesmerized by the effortless way she worked the clay. It was as if her hands knew exactly what to do, drawing out the form with ancient knowledge. The simple act felt profound, a lesson in itself. "You make it sound so simple," he breathed. "It is," she said, looking at him, her golden eyes warm. "The simplest truths are often the most profound." She placed the small clay form, a stylized, elegant bird, on his workbench. "Trust your truth, Stefan." A sense of profound gratitude washed over him. He felt an unbreakable bond forming between them, forged in shared secrets and surprising understanding. This was more than just intrigue now. It was something deeper, something that resonated with his very core. As he reached for the clay bird, he caught a reflection in the studio window. Outside, just beyond the glass, a figure stood. It was the same student from the pond, the dark jacket unmistakable. This time the student made no attempt to hide. The face was visible now, sharp features, dark, intense eyes that seemed to bore directly into them. Kale. The name floated into Stefan's mind, though he couldn't recall ever hearing it spoken. Kale's stare was unsettling, calculating, utterly devoid of warmth. There was no curiosity in those eyes, only cold assessment. Kale stood there for a long moment, then turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner of the building. Stefan felt a chill despite the warmth of the studio. Kale had been watching them, observing their every interaction. The feeling was no longer a fleeting unease, but a definite sense of being scrutinized, of being under a microscope. He looked at Brianna, but she was already turning her gaze back to him, a faint, almost imperceptible shadow crossing her expressive face. He knew, with a certainty that transcended logic, that Kale's presence was not a coincidence. Kale was watching them. And Stefan knew, without having to ask, that Brianna knew it too. The game of stolen snacks had indeed evolved, and the stakes were growing higher than he could have ever imagined. Stefan turned from the window, his gaze meeting Brianna. The faint shadow on her face deepened. "You know him," Stefan stated, his voice quiet but firm. "The student watching us, Kale." Brianna hesitated, her golden eyes scanning his face. Her usual disarming warmth was tinged with a solemnity he had not seen before. She looked at the small clay bird on his workbench, then back at him. "Yes, Stefan, I know Kale." She took a deep breath. "And there is much more you need to know." Her voice was low, laced with a gravity that resonated through the quiet studio. "This isn't just about stolen snacks anymore. It never truly was." Stefan felt a cold knot form in his stomach. The casual games, the metabolic condition, the flashes of impossible speed, it all converged into a single, overwhelming question. He sat on the stool, waiting, a sense of impending revelation settling around them like a shroud. Brianna walked to the studio door, locking it with a soft click. She moved with a purpose, her earlier playful demeanor completely absent. "What I am about to tell you changes everything," she began, her voice a hushed whisper. "Everything you think you know about me, about this campus, about your world." She paused, her gaze steady, searching his for understanding. "I am not from Terra, I am from Lyraxis." The name, Lyraxis, hung in the air, alien and resonant. Stefan's mind reeled, trying to reconcile the smiling girl who stole his chickpeas with the being who just uttered such a profound statement. "Lyraxis," he managed, the word feeling foreign on his tongue. "Yes," she confirmed. "It is my home world, a planet far from your solar system. My people, the Lyraxians, are a shape-shifting species by nature. What you witnessed in the gym, the transformation, that is a part of our natural physiology, a controlled shift we call morphogenesis. The fur highlights, the golden eyes, the heightened senses, they are all subtle indicators of my true form, elements I maintain even in my current state." Stefan remembered the elongating body, the thick hands, the intense glow of her eyes. It had been brief, terrifying, but now, hearing her explain it, a strange sense of clarity began to emerge. The pieces of the puzzle, the seemingly unrelated oddities, were starting to fit. "My presence here on Terra is not accidental," Brianna continued, stepping closer. "I am an ambassador, or rather, an advanced scout. My mission is to assess humanity's worthiness for an interstellar alliance. Lyraxis seeks to expand its diplomatic network, and Terra, with its unique blend of innovation and raw potential, has been identified as a candidate." Stefan felt a wave of disbelief, then a flicker of pride. Humanity, a candidate for an interstellar alliance. It was a concept so vast, so momentous, it almost defied comprehension. An alliance, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Yes, a partnership for mutual growth, protection, and the exchange of knowledge. But before such a proposal can be made, a thorough evaluation is necessary. That is where you, Stefan, unwittingly came in. She offered a small, apologetic smile. The food stealing was not merely a prank. It was a cultural observation tactic, a low-stakes test of human reactions to the unconventional, to perceived minor transgressions. Your consistent, yet quiet, resilience, your eventual intrigue rather than sustained anger, these were valuable data points. They spoke of a species capable of patience, curiosity, and an unexpected capacity for empathy, even when annoyed. A jumble of emotions surged through Stefan. Shock first and foremost at the sheer scale of the deception. Betrayal, a sharp pang that she had kept such a profound truth from him, that their entire connection had been built on a foundation of observation, a test. But beneath that, a profound understanding began to blossom. His quiet annoyance, his unique reactions had been crucial. He hadn't been a fool, he had been a subject, an important one. And in a strange way, he felt seen, valued, in a manner far beyond any human interaction. And Kale, Stefan asked, the name a sharp counterpoint to the cosmic revelation. Who is he? Brianna's expression hardened, her golden eyes losing their warmth. Kale is not Lyraxian. He is a Vorlag agent. The name sounded like a guttural growl. The Vorlag are a rival faction, hostile to any expansion of our alliances, especially with species they deem unstable or primitive. They operate through sabotage, misinformation, and subtle interference. They believe humanity is too volatile, too prone to conflict to be a reliable ally. Kale's presence here means he is actively trying to disrupt my assessment, to paint humanity in the worst possible light, to ensure the alliance never materializes. The pieces clicked into place with a sickening thud. The mysterious student at the pond, the calculating stare outside the studio window, Kale wasn't just observing. He was an enemy. And Brianna, the girl who had stolen his snacks, was not just an ambassador, but a target. Stefan stood, his mind racing. The quiet campus, the mundane routines, suddenly felt like a battlefield. His initial feelings of shock and betrayal began to recede, replaced by a fierce, unfamiliar protective instinct. Brianna, with all her incredible abilities, was still alone here, facing an unseen enemy. His quiet annoyance had evolved into something far more profound, a deep emotional connection forged through shared vulnerabilities and unexpected understanding. He understood now why she had sought him out, why she had confided in him. He was not just a data point, he was a confidant. He looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time, not as a mysterious girl, not as an alien, but as Brianna, vulnerable despite her power, brave in her mission. The thought of Kale, the Vorlag agent, disrupting her work, threatening her, ignited a spark within him. He had always been a quiet observer, content to watch the world from the sidelines. But Brianna had pulled him into her orbit, shown him truths beyond his wildest imagination. Now he felt a powerful desire to protect her, to ensure her mission succeeded. "You're telling me," Stefan said, his voice gaining strength, "that my reactions to you stealing my lunch could decide the fate of 2 planets." He shook his head, a wry, almost disbelieving smile touching his lips. "And that Kale is trying to stop it." Brianna nodded, her gaze unwavering. "In essence, yes. Your reactions and the reactions of others I have observed. But Kale's interference is a direct threat to the integrity of my assessment. He will not hesitate to manipulate events, to create incidents that portray Terra as unworthy." Stefan walked towards her, the last vestiges of confusion melting away. The initial sting of betrayal had given way to a profound sense of purpose. This wasn't about him anymore or his stolen food. It was about something far greater. He looked at the clay bird on his workbench, the stylized form Brianna had crafted, a symbol of trust and truth. "Then we stop him," Stefan said, his voice clear, resolute. We don't let him ruin your mission. We don't let him misrepresent Terra. He met her golden eyes, a new resolve shining in his own. Tell me everything. How do we fight a Vorlag agent? Brianna's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise, then a deep, undeniable warmth bloomed in their depths. A genuine smile, full of relief and something akin to hope, touched her lips. Stefan, she breathed, the single word carrying the weight of a dawning alliance. The quiet human who had shared his snacks was now ready to share her fight. The stakes were indeed higher, and their unexpected alliance had just taken its first, formidable step. Stefan felt the weight of her gaze, the unspoken trust. The air in his studio, usually thick with the scent of clay and turpentine, now vibrated with the enormity of their shared reality. Lyraxis, Vorlag, Alliance, all hinged on a human's reactions to stolen food and his willingness to fight for it. Kale will be subtle, Brianna began, her voice low, precise. He won't use direct force, not openly. His goal is to plant doubt, to create scenarios that make Terra seem volatile, untrustworthy. She walked to his workbench, picking up a small, unfinished sculpture of a stylized bird. He might tamper with communications, disrupt infrastructure, or even incite minor conflicts between students. Stefan's mind raced, sifting through years of quiet observation. He knew the campus like the back of his hand. Not just the main pathways, but the forgotten service tunnels, the rarely used stairwells, the blind spots of security cameras. He knew the rhythms of the student body, the predictable gathering spots, the times when certain areas were deserted. He's been watching us, Stefan said, recalling Kale's unsettling stare by the pond and outside the studio window. He knows we're connected. That means he'll likely try to use that against you, against us. He tapped a finger against his chin. What kind of communications are we talking about? Lyraxian communications? Or Terra's? Both, Brianna clarified. My scout vessel maintains a low-level, encrypted link to Lyraxis. Kale will attempt to intercept or jam it. He might also try to manipulate public data networks, creating false reports or spreading misinformation that reflects poorly on human society. She looked up, her golden eyes meeting his. Your quiet observation skills, Stefan, your artistic eye for detail, they could be invaluable. Stefan considered this. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. He noticed the slight shifts in body language, the unspoken tensions. Campus security is tight in some areas, lax in others, he mused. There are always dead zones for signals, places where Wi-Fi drops, for instance. Could he be exploiting those? It's possible, Brianna confirmed, a flicker of appreciation in her expression. A Vorlag agent would exploit any vulnerability. They are masters of disruption. So we need to anticipate him, Stefan stated, a clear strategy forming. We need to understand his methods. Where would he go to cause the most impact with the least risk of being caught? What systems on campus are crucial, yet easily compromised? Brianna nodded, stepping closer. My scans indicate a higher concentration of unusual energy signatures around the main data center beneath the library and near the primary power substation on the campus outskirts. Those are high-value targets for any disruption. The data center is heavily monitored, Stefan pointed out, but the power substation is off the beaten path, mostly service access, and it connects to almost every building. A disruption there would be widespread. He walked towards a large map of the campus he kept pinned to his wall, pointing to the substation icon. This area is often quiet at night. Service crews only go there during the day, usually. Precisely, Brianna agreed, her finger tracing the outline of the substation on the map. It's a prime location for a covert operation. Kale would likely attempt to plan a device that interferes with signal integrity, making it appear as a technical malfunction, not sabotage. We need to observe the substation, Stefan decided, his voice firm. We need to see if Kale is already making moves. My normal routine takes me past the library but not the substation. If we want to catch him, we have to change our routine. Brianna paused, her gaze softening. You would truly risk your routine, your studies for this. This isn't just about my routine anymore, Stefan replied, meeting her gaze directly. This is about proving Kale wrong, proving Tara is worthy. You put your trust in me. I'm not going to let you down. A warmth spread through him, a feeling of shared purpose unlike anything he had ever experienced. The quiet observer was now an active participant. They spent the next hour meticulously planning. Stefan sketched out possible routes Kale might take to the substation, considering access points and potential blind spots. Brianna explained the subtle energy signatures a Vorlag device would emit, how her enhanced senses might detect them even when cloaked. We need a cover, Stefan said. We can't just loiter around a power substation without drawing attention. We need a reason to be there. What about a late-night art project? Brianna suggested, a playful glint in her golden eyes. Observational sketching of industrial architecture. You are an artist after all. Stefan smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile. Perfect. I can set up a tripod, make it look official. And you can assist me, providing security. The idea of them working together, using his artistic guise to mask her alien mission, felt oddly right. Their unique connection was solidifying into a formidable partnership. We'll start tomorrow night, Brianna confirmed. The energy readings around the substation have been fluctuating more than usual over the past few days. It indicates Kale might be preparing his move. Stefan nodded. I'll pack my sketching gear, and maybe some extra snacks, for both of us. The old habit of guarding his food now felt like a distant memory, replaced by a quiet understanding and an unexpected tenderness. As the evening deepened, a comfortable silence settled between them. Stefan found himself looking at Brianna not as an alien ambassador, but as a brave, brilliant individual who had chosen to trust him, a quiet human. Her presence filled his studio with a vibrant energy, pushing away the solitary quiet he had always known. He realized his initial annoyance had completely evaporated, replaced by a deep, unwavering respect. He admired her courage, her dedication, her willingness to put herself at risk for an alliance. Thank you, Stefan, Brianna said softly, breaking the silence. Her voice held a rare vulnerability. I truly believed I would have to face Kale alone. This changes everything. You're not alone, Stefan responded, his voice gentle, unwavering. He reached out, his hand hovering for a moment before lightly touching her arm. Her skin was warm, smooth. We're in this together. Her golden eyes met his, and he saw not just gratitude but a profound connection blooming between them. The unexpected alliance formed in his art studio was more than strategic. It was deeply personal. A new chapter had begun, not just for Tara and Lyraxis, but for Stefan and Brianna. They were no longer just student and observer, but partners on a mission, their shared trust a potent weapon against the coming threat. The quiet human and the Lyraxian scout, united against a common enemy, their bond forging stronger with every passing moment. Stefan adjusted the strap of his art bag, the canvas roll clinking softly against his sketching pencils. The campus outskirts substation stood as a blocky, utilitarian structure, its industrial hum a low thrum against the evening quiet. Brianna moved with a silent grace beside him, her golden eyes scanning the perimeter. They had chosen a vantage point within a cluster of overgrown bushes, offering concealment without obscuring their view. Energy signatures are fluctuating, Brianna murmured, her voice barely a whisper, more erratic than yesterday. He's nearby. Stefan pulled out his sketchbook, feigning artistic intent. Any specific patterns? He kept his gaze on the substation, but his mind raced through campus schematics. A pulse every few minutes, attempting to piggyback on the grid's natural flow, she explained, her head cocked slightly. It's a data siphon, trying to tap into the Lyraxian relay hidden within the campus network. Stefan remembered the old conduit maps. The secondary power lines running past the science lab. They lead to the old server room beneath the library. That's where the network hub for campus-wide communications is rooted. Precisely, Brianna confirmed, a hint of admiration in her tone. Kale thinks he can use localized power surges to mask his data extraction. He's trying to overwhelm the signal filters. We need to create our own countersurge, Stefan mused, sketching a rough diagram of the power flow. A concentrated burst that disrupts his siphon, but doesn't alert campus security or damage the grid. Brianna watched him, her gaze intense. How? The old gymnasium's ventilation system, Stefan pointed with his pencil. It shares a direct power line with the science lab's secondary circuit. If we can momentarily overload the gym's fans, it will create a localized power draw, pulling Kale's siphon off balance. A precise window would be required, Brianna calculated. Too long and it triggers alarms. Too short and he adapts. I know the gym's maintenance schedule, Stefan said. They usually test the ventilation system's emergency override around 10 p.m. It's a manual process, not automated. We can trigger it prematurely, just for a few seconds. A flicker of approval crossed Brianna's face. Clever. It uses existing campus activity as a cover. Stefan felt a warmth spread through him. Her trust in his understanding of mundane campus routines felt significant. You'd need to be inside the gym, at the control panel. I can be there, Brianna affirmed. The gym's entrance near the track field, less monitored. They waited, observing. The air grew cooler. At 9:45, Brianna slipped away, a phantom in the twilight. Stefan continued his sketching, his ears tuned for any unusual sounds. His heart beat a steady rhythm, a mix of apprehension and exhilaration. He felt a profound sense of purpose, a shared mission with Brianna that eclipsed his former solitary existence. Moments later, a faint whirring sound reached him. It lasted only a few seconds, then died down. He imagined Brianna, quick and precise, executing their plan. A small smile touched his lips. Brianna reappeared beside him, silent as before. The siphon dropped, she reported, her voice hushed. He attempted to re-establish it immediately, but the disruption was too effective. He's trying a different frequency now. He's adapting, Stefan observed. He won't give up easily. No, Brianna agreed, but he's also frustrated. His energy pulses are less controlled, more desperate. She pointed towards a specific light pole across the campus lawn. See the flicker? It's not a power issue. It's Kale attempting to project a localized signal jam. He's trying to block our Lyrixision outbound messages, thinking we're sending mission updates. Stefan narrowed his eyes. That pole connects to the campus's decorative lighting grid. It's usually on a timer. The main control is in the groundskeeper's shed. Too far, Brianna dismissed, and too risky to enter. We need a closer solution. Stefan thought for a moment, recalling the campus's older, less used systems. The old fountain near the central quad. It has an independent power supply for its pump and lights. The wiring is exposed in a small access panel behind the stone bench. What would that achieve? Brianna asked, intrigued. If we can cross-circuit its power, even for a moment, it would create electromagnetic interference in that immediate area, Stefan explained. Enough to scramble Kale's localized jammer, but subtle enough to appear like a normal electrical fault. It would be brief, Brianna considered, but effective enough to break his signal. Exactly, Stefan confirmed. It's a temporary disruption. We just need to give our relays a chance to transmit. Brianna looked at him, her golden eyes shining in the dim light. You have an uncanny understanding of this campus, Stefan. Every hidden conduit, every forgotten access point. I'm an observer, he said, a shy smile playing on his lips, and an artist. I notice the details. He felt a flush of pride at her compliment. A truly invaluable skill, she replied, her voice soft, especially when fighting a hidden enemy. She paused, her gaze holding his. Are you cold? She asked, noticing a slight shiver. Your human physiology is less resilient to the night air than mine. Just a little, he admitted. He hadn't noticed the chill until she mentioned it. Brianna shifted closer, her arm brushing his. A warmth, subtle yet profound, spread through him. Her presence was a comforting anchor in the growing tension of their mission. He found himself wanting to lean into her, to share the quiet intimacy of their shared watch. "I can handle the fountain," she said, her voice dropping to a low purr. "It requires speed and precision. My specialty." "Be careful," Stefan urged, a genuine concern in his voice. "We can't afford any mistakes." "I will," she promised. She squeezed his arm gently, a gesture that spoke volumes of their burgeoning connection. Then she was gone, a fleeting shadow dissolving into the campus shadows. Stefan watched her go, a knot of worry tightening in his stomach. He trusted her completely, but the danger felt real, tangible. His analytical mind kept replaying scenarios, searching for contingencies. This wasn't just about protecting his snacks anymore. This was about protecting Brianna and the future of two worlds. A few minutes later, the light pole flickered wildly, its beam distorting into erratic pulses before settling back into its normal, steady glow. The fountain lights, however, remained off. Another successful disruption. Brianna returned, a triumphant glint in her golden eyes. He's retracting his remote projections. He's clearly frustrated. He's trying to locate us now. I can feel his probing scans across the campus. "Then we move," Stefan decided, packing his sketching gear quickly. "We've made our point for tonight. We've shown him we're aware and that we can counter him." As they walked, keeping to the shadows, their steps synchronized. Stefan felt a thrilling sense of accomplishment, but also a growing awareness of the escalating stakes. Kale would not be deterred easily. "You performed admirably, Stefan," Brianna said, her voice laced with genuine praise. "Your insights into Terra's systems are truly remarkable. No Lyrixian could have anticipated those vulnerabilities." "And your execution was flawless," he replied, meeting her gaze. "You're incredibly fast, Brianna, and precise." Their eyes met, and a silent understanding passed between them. The shared danger, the collaborative triumph, had woven a new thread into their bond. It was more than respect, more than alliance. It was a deep, undeniable pull, a recognition of complementary strengths and a burgeoning affection. "We make a good team," Brianna stated, her voice soft, almost tender. "The best," Stefan agreed, a genuine smile spreading across his face. He reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. Her skin was warm, vibrant. The simple touch sent a jolt of quiet joy through him. He saw a similar warmth reflected in her golden eyes. They continued walking, their hands clasped, the quiet campus night holding the promise of a future, both for their worlds and for their own unexpected connection. They had faced Kale's initial probes, disrupted his minor sabotage attempts, and in doing so, had forged something stronger between them. The fight was far from over, but they were ready. Together. Their alliance had moved beyond strategic necessity into the realm of profound personal connection, solidifying their resolve against the coming storm. The campus, once just a backdrop for stolen snacks, now felt like the crucible of their destiny.